Hey, kia ora, Markie here in the darkness or semi-darkness. Should be doing one of my kind of spooky topics really, shouldn't I, with this? Capitalise on the atmosphere. So I'm walking back in the dark and I just like to vlog, and you can walk and vlog at the same time. It just seems to make perfect sense really. So hello, so this is another one in the series Social Skills for Aspies and Askies. Don't ask me what the number is, I'll work that out later and put that on the on the description box and in the title. But what I want to talk about is something that I'm actually really bad at. So this is a kind of a do as I say, not do as I do topic. I want to talk about taking offence. Okay, or more to the point, not taking offence. So I think there is a danger for us neurodiverse people to be more quick to take offence than neurotypical people, and perhaps to take offence more wholeheartedly, to take deeper umbrage, take deeper offence. And there's a number of reasons for this, and also it's compacted or compounded if we also have a touch of ADHD, which I do. So, and this is one of the reasons that I can be very prone to taking offence, is that impulsivity that comes with ADHD. Now, I know this series isn't aimed at people with ADHD, but there's going to be a good chunk of people, Askies and Aspies, that are going to have ADHD just because of the way it correlates. So I think it's important to take these things into consideration. And we are impulsive, so that leads to taking offence and overreacting, or reacting too quickly, not being able to hold ourselves back. So you know that thing where you get angry and you type up an email, and the sensible thing is not to send that email, is to sleep on it. Maybe put it in drafts and think about it the next day, talk to somebody else about it, but we want to bang that off. Okay, and why are we like that? Well, this is a dopamine issue. So when our dopamine levels are low, we feel pretty crap, and anything feels better than the boredom and the low dopamine feeling. So we make trouble, we poke bears. It's called bear poking. So we don't take much provocation to respond in a way that maybe we'll regret later. So that's something to be aware of. The other reason that we're more likely to get ourselves into trouble by taking offence, or to inappropriately or unnecessarily take offence, is because we misinterpret cues, obviously. We sometimes interpret things in a very different way, particularly if it's to do with like facial cues or non-verbal cues and things like that. So we get the wrong end of the stick very easily. And then third thing is we can be very black and white. We can have very set ideas, set ways of seeing things, and this is why I think I've talked about this before. I talk about this a lot really because it drives me nuts. People on fora, Facebook groups, and like I say, I've often had worse arguments and worse falling outs with people that are on groups for a common interest, like maybe literature or films or something like that. People just often don't seem to be able to tolerate a different opinion. And that's that level of rigidity is really disabling. I think that's really not a good way to be living your life. So that rigidity of thought, that black and white thinking, that lack of tolerance for other opinions, means we can take offence when somebody disagrees. And people, it's good for people to disagree. Disagreement is what makes the world go round. If we all thought the same way, the world would be weird, really. I don't know how the world would function if we all thought the same way. It would be some kind of fascist dystopia, I think. So that's kind of three reasons why we might be prone to take offence more easily, to take great umbrage, to get the hump, to throw in a few phrases. And on the subject of sayings and phrases, there's a great phrase that I was taught on a course that I went to many years ago, kind of quite a big life-changing course. And it was that it causes more harm in the world to take offence than it does to give offence, which I think is interesting. It's worth reflecting on that, really. That taking offence does cause lots of problems, and breaks up families and causes all kinds of, pain, really. There's a fourth reason why I think we are prone to take great umbrage, take offence too easily, and go to extremes with that. And that is basically kind of negative past experiences, trauma with a capital T, but also traumas with a small t. So if we're on the spectrum and we're neurodiverse, the chances are we've got a lot more baggage than the average bear. So we are carrying the memory and the pain of unpleasant social interactions going right back to childhood, and some stuff that touches on some quite big core issues. So we would have experienced rejection, we would have experienced ridicule, and we would have experienced a lot of misunderstanding, people just not getting us, and not being understood, not being heard is one of the hardest things, I think, for human beings. We all like to be understood, and when people don't get us, it's like real kind of bang your head against a brick wall kind of time, and that's often what starts these silly arguments online. Is somebody posts something, somebody completely misunderstands it, and then that kind of produces this rage. So one of the things that I was taught by a colleague who was kind of as I was getting into the field, was kind of getting to the end of their career, was that if you have a disproportionate emotional reaction to something, it's always a sign that you're being driven by stuff from the past and not stuff from the present. So I think that's often what's going on for us. We're carrying that hurt, and sometimes it's rage. I think I would say that most people on the autistic spectrum or who are neurodiverse are carrying some degree of trauma, and that can come out as rage. And the trauma often is around not being understood, not being heard, which is a particularly rage triggering experience. So if we've had that a lot in the past and we think we're getting it now, we can really overreact, and that's what we often do. So there's 4 potential reasons why we are more likely to react really strongly to and really negatively and potentially completely inappropriately, and misread situations and go off on one when actually we've got it completely wrong, we've read it completely wrongly. So what do? It's difficult. Particularly, for me, I actually get a lot of pleasure from getting into fights, which is kind of weird, really, because I'm very peace orientated kind of person. I'm all for people treating each other well, getting on well, and I'm never somebody that certainly not in my own, certainly not knowingly, I'm not somebody that is the first person to be aggressive. So it's like in road situations, I tend not to get angry if somebody does something wrong on the road. If somebody cuts me up or does something wrong on the road, I tend not to get too angry about that. But if somebody has a go at me, even mildly, I can respond, not physically aggressively, but verbally verbally aggressively, and sometimes I can really enjoy that, so there is a kind of payoff, there's something that's perpetuating that behavioural cycle, but actually, I might enjoy it in the moment, just kicking something off the path, but often there's a longer price to pay off, and there are consequences to that immediate kind of rage, and you'll see me do this with comments and trolls. somebody trolls one of my videos. My reaction is, massively disproportionate. It's like somebody's killed one of my family. So this is a lesson for me, probably more than it is for you, really. But I think this is, there is not complete universality in this, but this is something that a lot of people who are on the spectrum or neurodiverse in other ways are gonna be wrestling with. And I think the other side of this for me is, I think people who are on the spectrum, who follow particular interests, typically get into massive internecine battles that are very unnecessary. And again, often this is around kind of hobby stuff, around things that really don't matter, where you get two different schools of thought that, can be really kind of quite nasty when there's no need, and I see that happening all the time. And actually in the past, before I even knew about neurodiversity and before I even knew about or really knew about the autism spectrum, I used to quite often avoid hobby groups because of this, because of these kinds of behaviours. So, and that makes it unpleasant for everyone, really. And I think we have to remember, if we're engaged in a group over something that we enjoy, why are we taking it so seriously? Why are we kind of, having these massive falling outs as if it's life and death? But it happens, and I think it's very sad. So if we can avoid this, if we can temper ourselves, then that's better for us and it's better for everyone else. How do we do it? Hold your breath, deep breaths, count to 100, no, count to 12,000 backwards. Certainly getting another opinion on a situation before responding is very wise and very valuable. And also, if somebody says something and your first reaction is to respond negatively, it's always a good idea to say to somebody, what exactly do you mean by that? Because at times I've completely misinterpreted people. I've kind of taken it. I've taken some things that people have said as sarcasm when they're not, and gone off on one, and then I've had to eat humble pie and apologise afterwards. So yeah, the best thing is anything really that will delay your response and give you cooling off time, reflection time, and consultation time. Run it by somebody else, or ask the other person, what did you mean by that? Or you could even say something like, well, that sounds really harsh. Did you mean it that way? Did you mean it to be that harsh? That's quite a good. Because asking questions is always good. So I hope this is helpful. I probably need to listen to my own words, but like I say, with the ADHD, the dopamine hit of responding aggressively is like heroin. Well, dopamine is dopamine and all these internal chemicals aren't that different, really. So it's very, very, very challenging. And also, things like responding aggressively to people. I mean, it's like where I live now. I mean, so I'm in New Zealand, and everyone thinks New Zealand is a kind of, rainbow, kind of green, hippie, kind of Earth Mother. We all, like Bill Bailey, did a gig in here in the local town, and he said, "Oh, all you people, you surf to work on the back of dolphins." So he's got this kind of reputation, but actually New Zealand's got more gangs than any other country in the world. It's a really kind of strange part of the culture. So, if I respond disproportionately and aggressively to like a kind of minor road rage thing, it's scary, it's risky. I could if I do that with the wrong person, I could be in serious physical harm could come my way. So that's something I'm kind of very conscious of, particularly here, and also I guess because I work in the field of harm prevention, domestic violence, sexual violence, and I'm kind of aware of, I've done a lot of study into psychopathy and narcissistic personality disorder and stuff like that. I'm very aware that there are some people in this world that are really not good to mess with, and if you're quick to temper and you happen to kind of do that with the wrong person, it's kind of dangerous stuff, really. So, and also the other thing about here is it's a very small community. I don't know if this is evidence-based, but people say that rather than 6 degrees of separation, there's 2 degrees of separation. So everybody knows everybody, and I'd have found that amazing, coincidences that, in quite a big community, I'd meet one person and then I meet them again in some other capacity, and then I find that somebody else that I know is their best friend. Everybody is. There really is a. It kind of sounds like a cliche, and it sounds like just something that people say, that everybody knows everybody else, but they do. So if you basically overreact to something and make an arse of yourself, in a community like this, then the reputational damage is another thing to take into consideration. So on that note, and as it's night time, I will bid you good night, and I always end these videos with the Maori word for peace, Rangimarie, and I'm aware of the irony that much as I promote peace, I've got really quite a kind of volatile warrior spirit within me as well. So which I guess the challenge for all of us is to keep that in check. Sometimes that's a very useful thing, and sometimes it's not. So good luck with this struggle, and let me know your thoughts on this. Let me know how it's been for you, what challenges you've had. Have you had any situations where you think your neurodiversity has made you respond in a way that you've later regretted, and you've really thought, I wish I could, do that again, turn back the clock and respond in a different way. It'd be great to hear some of those, real life experiences, real life examples, and we can all learn by that, especially me. So, good night, and Rangimarie.